'cause I caught you in a lie. I saw that little number when you thought I wasn't looking. You were eyeing each other.
Hi, I'm Mike Peace, and today we're talking to the legendary singer-songwriter recording artist, Mr. Tommy James of Tommy James and the Shondells.
Hello?
Tommy James, my gosh.
How are you?
I'm very good.
Mike, first of all, let me just thank you for that tremendous review.
Well, you're entirely welcome.
I just want you to know that.
It's really exciting for me to talk to you because you and I are both the same age. I mean,
oh my God, you're 106 also?
I am too, yeah. We're like 2 months apart, birthday-wise.
Really?
Yeah. So.
What month were you born?
June.
Well, see, you're younger than I am.
Yeah, you're an old guy.
Yeah, right.
And anyway, I had a band, and we were out there playing, and the first time I ever was aware of you, I began to dislike you very much.
Because of the solo in Hanky Panky, right?
No. We were playing a bar. Nobody had heard of you. And this stupid song was playing over and over and over on the jukebox. I went up to the bartender. I said, "What the heck is this song? It's not been on the radio." He said, "Oh, it's something the owner got." He said it was bootlegged, and he found it up in North Dakota.
Really?
And
where were you from?
I'm from Wisconsin.
I used to live in Monroe, I started in Monroe, Wisconsin. That's where I started playing guitar.
Are you kidding?
No. What town?
Thorpe. You know where Thorpe is?
No.
How about Eau Claire, Wausau?
Sure, I know Eau Claire, sure.
Well, Thorpe is like right in between Eau Claire and Wausau.
I'll be darned. So. I was just up in Wisconsin last week.
Wow.
We did Baraboo, Wisconsin.
Okay, yeah.
It was a big event center up there.
Yeah.
And we had people from all over the Midwest up there. It was great. See, I'm a plainclothes cheesehead.
Yeah, you don't want to tell too many people about that.
That's like saying you're a nerd or something. You get put down immediately.
Yeah. So now you're a Philly cheese.
You had a band and you were playing in Wisconsin, was it?
Yeah. This was right out of high school, or while I was still in high school. Right. We started the band, and the band was called Attila and the Huns.
Wow.
And so we're playing this bar. It's a Tombstone Tap, and if you know anything about Tombstone Pizza, that's where.
No, sorry.
You haven't heard of Tombstone Pizza?
No.
Wow, that's big, probably all over the Midwest. But it was a little bar, and they made pizzas, and it's right next to a graveyard. So that's where the name Tombstone came from.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it came from there.
Yeah.
So what was the song?
Okay, so I'm asking the bartender if this song was a bootleg version of Hanky Panky. And
on Red Fox Records?
I don't even know. It was on the jukebox, and it was a handwritten label, on the jukebox. And so I'm telling the guys, we probably should do this. And I already knew the words because it was playing so much.
There were only 6 of them.
So yeah, we got up on stage, and the bartender shuts off the jukebox, and shuts off Hanky Panky, and everybody goes, "Aww." And we're up there on stage, and it was just, I had told the guys, okay, these are the chords, and I just said, "My baby does a hanky panky," and the audience screamed. I mean,
you took up the slack. I like that.
They thought we were the Beatles. I mean, I thought we were the Beatles or something. It's like,
you may owe me some money. Great. Well, it was. That's just the way it was with that crazy little record.
Yeah, it was.
And it just hit people between the eyes, and of course, I can never forget. I'm the guy who took the solo on Hanky Panky. Let's put this in perspective.
One
of the worst Fender guitar players you will ever hear. It's funny because I heard Hanky Panky in a bar for the first time. Another group played it. That's what made me decide to make the record.
Oh, wow.
It's a true story. It was a group called the Spinners back in after I left Wisconsin, sort of before and after Wisconsin was a little town called Niles, Michigan for me, my hometown.
Okay.
And I acted Hanky Panky became then this obscure record on the flip side of a record nobody ever heard of.
Okay.
So that's how rare it was. And so we did it, and it immediately exploded, went number one in northern Indiana and southern Michigan in about, like a 6-mile radius. And but we couldn't get any distribution.
Huh.
So the record just died. And I graduated from high school in '65 and took my band on the road and came back in early '66 depressed and out of work. And that's just how the good Lord works, though, because all of a sudden I get this call from Pittsburgh that they had pirated the record, and it was sitting at number one.
Wow, okay.
But only in the city of Pittsburgh.
Huh.
I mean, that was just too
Well,
high.
I don't know where. It must have been right there in '65 when it was big in Pittsburgh, because it was big up there.
It had hit in Pittsburgh before it hit anywhere else.
Yeah.
And then they bootlegged it and sold. They sold 80,000 of them in 10 days.
Okay.
And had the biggest record that Pittsburgh ever had.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't put the original band back together that did Hanky Panky. So I went to Pittsburgh myself and grabbed the first bar band I could find, and they became the Shondells. And 2 weeks later, we were in New York and signed with Roulette. And, of course, then Roulette
cool.
made it a hit all over the world. But that's just how insane this was. You talk about an all-American story.
Yeah.
Only in America.
Yeah, really. That, to me, is like the perfect example of how something can just take off overnight.
Yeah. Now, that couldn't happen today because, with parallel radio and all the other crap, you couldn't break out of one market like that.
No. This DVD you sent,
Right.
Tommy James Live.
It's coming out on
Shondells.
Sony.
Oh.
Sony, it
Cool.
comes this month out on Sony, and along with the CD, a corresponding CD. And it's also going to be released in Canada on Unidisc. We're going up for the signing on the 26th.
Very, very neat. The 26th, this month, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So that's gonna.
And
that's
I have
got
North America, thank God, covered now. I'm really excited too because what I love is that we're producing our own product now, and it's so great to be able to deal with these folks kind of head to head. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than as just an artist, it's a much better way of dealing with the industry.
that's
After Morris Levy, I can say that.
It's kind of different now too. Do you probably have your own recording studio in your house?
Not in the house.
No?
Just down the road a little bit.
Okay.
We have our own label, and we're doing business with 4 different record companies right now. So that's what I love about doing record business today. Is you can have different product out with different companies as long as you're producing.
You sent me this Tommy James and the Shondells Live at the bitter end. Is this the one that's coming out then?
Yes.
Okay.
The DVD and the CD.
Okay.
Both on Sony this month and on Unidisc in Canada.
Neat. Yeah, I kind of went through there looking at it, and it kind of surprised me because you appear to be playing open tuning on a lot of stuff.
Very good. That's right. Well, it was fun. I taught myself how to play that way when I was 9 years old, and I never, because all I really wanted was to be able to strum and play rhythm to accompany myself singing.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's great for songwriting, but it's horrible for playing leads,
I can't imagine.
That makes any sense.
I can't imagine how you would do that. But
well, I use my nose and my elbow.
There you go.
Minor keys are fun.
I had appeared with Jimmy Rogers, and so I was
that way.
I was aware of how he plays, So when I saw you playing it, I thought, okay.
Who else plays that way is who does it? Woodstock, Stevie, Richie Havens.
Richie Havens.
Yes.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's a surprise too. Dolly Parton, another one.
Is that right? That's right.
Yeah.
I just did a record with her.
Oh, did you?
Did you know?
Two open tuners.
Yes. Well, she and I just did Crimson and Clover.
Wow.
For her last album. Those were the years. Those were the days.
Wow.
And she wrote me the sweetest letter, and I got to get that to you. I can't believe we didn't send that down to you. Did we?
So her version.
She had a bunch of people, Nora Jones and Christofferson and several other people, doing cameos and duets with her on this album. And she wrote me a sweet letter and asked me if I would do Crimson and Clover with her? I said, yeah. So she did her half in Nashville.
Okay.
And sent us the hard drive for Pro Tools up here, and we did our half here in New York. We got together at Radio City and took pictures. And so it was on the album, and I'm even thinking maybe we could sneak it out as a single to some radio stations. Might be kind of interesting. It came out really beautiful.
Neat. We did a bunch of Tommy James songs with my band, you know.
Did you?
Yeah. I mean, after the success with Hanky Panky, for us.
I did a few of them myself with my band.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
But, you know, those were so great because playing in a rock group at that moment in time was an education that you couldn't get anywhere else. And the reason is because all the ducks were in a row, and so many people who started out as DJs and producers and engineers and writers and so forth started out as rock musicians during that era.
Yeah.
And gradually, for one reason or another, they drifted into these other businesses. Those whack jobs like me who stayed doing it got a chance to see the history of rock and roll sort of played out right before our eyes. I wouldn't give that up for anything.
Yeah. I unfortunately, the band broke up in 1984, and I ended up going on for another 8 or 9 years.
Oh, really?
Doing a single.
I'll be darned.
But then I had to get a computer job.
Oh,
you know,
my.
just.
Well, you did it a long time.
Oh yeah. From 1964 to 84 with the band.
I'll be darned.
And
that's a pretty damn good education.
Yeah, we had 11 singles. Number 34 was as high as we got.
Really?
And that was.
What label were you with?
It was we were on a bunch of different labels, including our own.
Mm-hmm.
We were on Dynamic Sound.
Sure.
Lenny LaCour was a producer out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh. What was the act again? What was it called?
We were Attila and the Huns, and then we changed it to Flay of Soul.
Mm-hmm.
You're
the lead singer?
Yes. So.
Well, that's great. Well, I just, back in the day, I'm talking about when we were all 12 and 13, 14 years old, and we all played silver-toned guitars because we couldn't afford Gibsons and Fenders,
Yeah, the old Sears and Roebuck.
Yeah. We were all on the Dan Electro guitars and silver tones and Zimgars and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you know something? Those were magical days where you learned to be a player and performer, and you could never get that education today.
No. You see people making it on YouTube, and all of a sudden, they performed in their bedroom. Now they got a crowd of 50,000 that are coming to see them, and they're just shaking in their boots to perform.
True. But you know something? There was nothing like playing those sock hops, and I still to this day have this incredible affinity for party rock. God, Money and the real shit-kicking rock and roll.
Yeah.
We just did, as a matter of fact, on the Hold the Fire album, you heard Loopy and Joe, which, it's amazing. What happened was 2 years ago, I went home to my mother's house in Michigan, and at Christmas time, and I pulled down off of a closet shelf an old shoebox, and inside of it was a set list written in my own handwriting from 1963. We were playing like the YMCA or something, and it had Little Latin Loopy Lou and Killer Joe on it, two of my all-time favorite songs, and I hadn't played them since.
Okay.
And we were doing the Hold the Fire album at the time. I bring it back to New York, and I say, we got to do these two. And we glued them together, sort of like the old Mitch Ryder format,
Yeah.
And Loopy and Joe was the result, and I love that kind of music. I love playing the stuff that makes people get up and dance.
Yeah, like old-time rock and roll.
Yeah,
I mean,
California Sun, and Money, and, oh, God, what am I... all those incredible records that... Mony Mony was basically an attempt to sort of glue everyone I knew back together again.
Yeah, back then, all the songs that were out are making such a comeback now because, let's face it, there isn't much that's any good anymore.
Well, that's true, and what has been touted as art has been pretty rotten for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm not just a sour old guy trying to, say that everything sucks from today. I'm not saying that because there's a lot of good stuff too. But what I am saying is that there's been a real dumbing down in rock and roll. And, we didn't have that much to start with. We were pretty dumb to start with.
Yeah.
But what I mean is that there's been this, when we started out, everybody was on the same page. You had the industry, the record companies, the trade papers, everybody they were all looking for the next big act.
Right.
And that isn't true anymore.
No. We were inventive back then, too. I mean, look at you. You're doing the open tuning. Who would have thought of that,
Well, everybody wanted to participate. The idea was that, at that point, being a rock star was actually a possibility.
Yeah. Well, even with our band, without ever getting a hit, we're in business for 20 years.
Absolutely.
Making a living at it.
And there's no way to do that today.
No.
The kids get about as far as the showcase rooms, and then there's nowhere else to go because the record companies aren't signing anybody.
Yeah.
It's like watching a bridge being built. You got to get from one side to the other. I mean, on one side of the river, you got people with money in their hands going, hey! And the other side, you got people making records, but there's really no way for them to get together anymore.
Yeah.
And the iPod, if it's done one thing that I really love, is bring back the singles market.
Yeah, they pretty well tried to phase out the singles altogether.
The singles market basically was root canaled by the industry.
Yeah.
And the album was always sort of a contrivance of the record companies because they made more money. But what I'm really saying is that the business model, when I first got into the industry, was you went in the studio, you recorded a single. If it had legs and charted, then you had a market for doing an album.
Mm-hmm.
And then you went in and did the album real quick with the next single on the album. That was the business model.
Yeah.
And the magic was in the singles, and the careers were made in the singles. And suddenly, in the 70s, the late 70s somewhere, the middle 70s, that all got turned on its head, and they actually with the Sgt. Pepper album, if you're really get down to it, but it really didn't happen until the 70s, where the companies would go and spend $500,000 doing an album and hoping that you got a couple of singles off of it. What a crazy way to do business.
Yeah.
The iPod has brought back the single because they're all single song downloads.
Yeah, you can go out to any website now and just grab whatever you want.
Yeah.
One good song and leave everything else there.
And that, more than anything else, is responsible for the demise of the record business. Remember, it isn't the music business that died; it's the disc business. And one of the things I'm really looking forward to is it's still a bit of a challenge getting new music in front of the public. I mean, that's tough right now, but what I see coming are things like, I think your television set's going to become terribly important. I think your cable box on your TV is going to have an MP3 player in it, and you're going to be able to download music on your television, and probably a little MP3 player that you can take out and put in your car stereo or put in somewhere else in your home.
Mm-hmm.
I see all kinds of situations. I think satellite radio is going to become interactive. And XM and Sirius, or the next step for them is that you can download something you like, something that you can hear. You hear. They already have your billing information, so becoming interactive would be no big deal at all.
No, you just grab it,
and it would be, CD quality because it's satellite.
Yeah.
And so I think over the next 2, 3, 4 years, we're going to see big changes for the good.
One thing that scares me is you're seeing a few of these artists now saying, pay what you want for my music.
That didn't do so well, though, because nobody wanted to pay.
Right.
But, the upside of that is that they make it big with the concert audience.
Yeah.
I still don't think, though, that if you're not making money from making records, then you're not going to make records very long.
No.
You can't afford to do it. But I think we're always going to have a CD market. It won't be nearly as big, but it's kind of interesting what's happening now, because as the big retailers are, record stores are dying. Records are popping up in grocery stores, 7-Elevens, convenience stores. And it's very interesting now because what I love doing is I love what we're doing right now in as much as we are creating content and then using the big record companies as distributors, which is what they do the best.
I think
that
makes
makes
sense.
all the sense in the world.
Yeah. Interesting.
Because the artist has become the brand name now instead of the record company.
Yeah, it was totally the other way back in the 50s,
right.
The song was the big thing.
Right. The
So,
song and the record company.
Yeah.
And now it's the artist has has suddenly become the brand name. And so it's great for guys like me. It's a little tough getting new music in front of the public, though, and that's what has to change. And it will.
Yeah, well, you've got Loopy and Joe, which is like totally new. Do you have any other new songs on?
Yeah, well, right now what's happened is that 2 years ago we put out a Christmas single that did really well for us across the country. We AC, oldies, multiple formats. It's called I Love Christmas. And for the last 2 Christmases, we've kept servicing radio.
Mm-hmm.
And so every Christmas we get this single played. Well, we've made an I Love Christmas album now.
Okay.
And a couple of things, if I can ramble for just a second.
No, that's unacceptable.
Let me give it my best shot here.
Okay.
We're doing a Christmas album called I Love Christmas.
Okay.
And it's going to be out on Sony in 2008. However, because we missed the Christmas marketing program.
Yeah, just a little late here. Yeah.
And we just finished it up. However, it will be on our website, TommyJames.com, this Christmas. But what I wanted to say is that I've gotten together again with the original Shondells.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike Vale and I wrote the last tune for this album. It's called It's Christmas Again. And we loved it so much that we brought in the other members of the Shondells, the other surviving members of the group. One of us has passed away.
Okay.
And so there's 4 of us left, and we went into the studio and recorded this last song called It's Christmas Again. And I hadn't been with these guys in 38 years, so
Yeah.
what a kick it was.
Wow.
And we are going to MP3 it to radio across the country.
I was hoping to be able to talk to you about. I know you're real excited about your autobiography since you got some film interest.
I know. What's so amazing is that this wasn't supposed to happen this way. I'm thankful for it. Don't get me wrong. I just my writing partner in this, Martin Fitzpatrick, who has out another book right now called it's about the Bitter End nightclub in New York. It's called Hanging Out at America's Nightclub, the Bitter End story.
Mm-hmm.
And he and I we're writing my autobiography, Crimson and Clover.
Ah.
And it's been sort of on the back burner for about 3-4 years. We've been doing a little here and a little there. And all of a sudden we get overtures from 2 different movie producers to do a film. And I'm flipped out about it because, first of all, now it means I got to finish the book. but also just to have this story out there, because I really believe it's a very compelling story about, the music business and the mob and all the stuff that Roulette Records was. They were ground zero for all that stuff.
Okay, yeah.
And Morris Levy, the head of Roulette Records, was a pretty notorious character. And in fact, the whole Roulette Records was pretty notorious. And, here we were, kids from the Midwest, trying to make music in this environment. It was really very interesting. It's like The Sopranos with music.
Okay, yeah.
And, of course, you have the politics of the day, because we were out with Hubert Humphrey for 6 months. And, all of the stuff that happened during the 60s, in addition to all the other groups we were working with.
Hmm.
So all of the, and then, of course, the whole thing backed up with this sort of, this wise guy story. And so it's a very interesting story, and all the guys, are gone now. The heavy characters are pretty gone.
Yeah.
And so I feel safe enough to write the story right now.
Won't disappear someplace, huh?
Well, at least I feel like it's okay to tell the story now.
Yeah.
So this is a 2-year project at least, and so if this actually comes off, it'll be really terrific.
You're going to be covering a lot of the beginning of the overnight star kind of thing?
Well, yeah. In this book, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, what I want to do, accomplish here musically, is, of course, we want to tell what happened with us, but also, a lot of the acts that we were working with, and it's going to be some behind-the-scenes stuff. But of course, the story we were living at the time with all these characters at Roulette was pretty fascinating.
So it's more like a mob story, do you think, or?
Well, it's sort of it certainly includes all that big time, because that's part of what Roulette was.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to be accurate with all this and give it enough music, enough mob, and enough politics, and enough all the other things that happen to it. Trying to be accurate. It's essentially an autobiography, with the center of gravity being the 60s and 70s.
I know your fans are really going to want to hear, the music and what your thoughts were in writing some of the songs and all that stuff. So.
Well, they've been so good to us over the years. The fans have kept the car going. Truthfully, the accuracy has been the issue.
Yeah.
And secondly, you've had this diabolical radio scam for so long, not just payola, but this whole idea of parallel radio has basically made it impossible for a record to break out of any one market. It sort of glosses everything over. And for a category, for example, like AC, where you sort of have, it's a natural log jam. They're playing the same records for 6 months. Yeah. So, getting anything new to register with anybody. And, of course, Top 40 now doesn't mean what it used to. Top 40 now means how many beats per minute something is, rather than the top 40 slots on radio. One of the things that has aggravated me so much is that, back in the day, you might have the Rascals, the Beatles, and Frank Sinatra on the same chart.
Yeah.
Today, those would be 3 different charts, and they'd be parallel radio would sort of gloss all that over. In other words, top 40 wouldn't be top 40 anymore.
Yeah, it
wouldn't be the top 40 slots. It would be these different categories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Frank Sinatra there's no way he'd get played on a top 40 station today. So.
Of course not.
And I agree. I would rather see a station playing the top 100,
right.
like years ago.
Right.
Because you get a nice variety, and people don't get stuck into their little grooves.
We wouldn't have a Motown if it had been any other way, because the white audience wouldn't have been exposed to the black music.
Yeah.
And I really believe that what we're seeing right now is the whole industry sort of reinventing itself.
Yeah. I was so excited to get your CD, the new Hold the Fire.
We released that last year. We had 3 top 5 AC records with that in Friday Morning Quarterback. Love Words, Hold the Fire, and what am I leaving out here? Love Words, and Isn't That the Guy?
Okay.
And those 3 tracks, Love Words actually went number 1 on Quarterback. But, everything is. I've never had a time when putting out a record and charting with it meant less. I couldn't believe it. I mean, there's just, there's such inertia out there.
Yeah.
And that's why the trade papers are so needed.
Yeah, I can believe that. I like that Magamation Man too.
Thank you.
Did you write all of these songs, or?
Let me think. I didn't write Loopy and Joe. Let me think.
You melded them together.
All the rest of them I wrote, yes.
Okay, very cool.
And Jimmy Wisner is my production and writing partner, who's been with me since I think We're Alone Now.
Wow.
He the first record he did with me was he arranged I think We're Alone Now, and he has been, he's the head of A&R at Columbia, for several years. He has done, he started out as a Mel-Torme's piano player. He has produced Barbra Streisand, Tony Bennett, Robert Goulet, plus a lot of rock acts. Started out at Cameo Parkway. He's had a huge career, Jimmy Wisner, and I'm real lucky to have him.
That's a long time with the same guy.
Yeah.
Wow. So.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. Jimmy is one of these guys who just really still in his 70s and still has the fire.
It doesn't go away.
No.
I mean, I was in the business for probably 30 years.
Yeah.
And then had to go out and get a real job.
Real job, right.
And then I'm so aching to get back into it full time, and the nice thing is that us older guys seem to be able to write music, a little
yes,
better than.
And let me tell you something. What you're doing is very important. This industry is going to have to be rebuilt. And it's going to require the knowledgeable people who have been doing this a while to do it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that has happened that is really too bad is that the younger people who have been involved in the record business and running record companies and stuff really never got that large historical education of the industry. And again, I don't want to sound like a sour old guy, but what I'm saying is that, the industry didn't begin with ZZ Top.
No.
And with all due respect, as much as I love that act, the point is that it's this historical perspective where you saw things go from 78 to 45s to tape to CDs and this large education. It's going to take all of us to glue this thing back together. Now it's going to happen because downloading and all the other things are just different ways of doing it. And I'm very sorry, by the way, that the industry didn't come to the fans with downloading. Why it had to be the other way around. So it's really a shame because every other major innovation has been given to the public from the record companies. This time it went backwards. And the industry basically tried to resist.
Yeah, with just taking away the singles from people.
Right.
And it's.
But also resisted downloading. They start suing the fans.
Oh yeah.
That's not going to get you very far.
No.
Because the days of the mass. What I miss so much are the huge radio stations that used to cover millions and millions of people. You put out an average top 20 record back in the 60s and 70s, and half the population heard the record.
Yeah, WLS.
Yeah,
CFL.
WLS, WABC, KHJ.
Yeah.
Now, you can have a number one record, nobody even knows you have a record out.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's hard to know what station to listen to on your radio, because you're not going to get anything that's current or, that is on a chart someplace.
You know what I think is going to get big? You're going to laugh at me, but I think, those radio stations at the top end of your dial on your television, they're not even radio stations. They're like these categories of music up there, AC and big bands and stuff like that. I think they're going to get very important.
Okay.
I think they're going to get interactive.
We don't have that on,
really?
on our TV.
Well, the upper end of our cable, you have essentially these digital radio stations.
Okay.
Up in the 500s and so forth, you have these categories of music: big band, easy listening, top 40, all these different categories. Well, I think it's going to take your television to get the kind of numbers that the old AM stations like WLS used to provide. I think it's going to require downloading into your cable box to get those kind of numbers again.
But do you think people are really going to, if you got the opportunity to listen to TV or the cable station, do you think they're going to actually listen to the cable?
Well, let's put it this way. We're all in the business of filling niches because Some people are going to get it from their computer. Some people are going to get it from their television. Some people are going to, I suppose, get it from radio.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in the end, what we're going to have, radio probably will reinvent itself.
I think it needs to.
And I believe it will. Radio, because of the nature of radio, will always be big. But it's got to go back to this big, total entertainment type of radio that used to be on the top 40 stations.
Right.
There's a missing format right now. You know, they've got all these things broken down. They're going to have to glue these formats back together and come up with some kind of new top 40 that's going to include, well, look at what the old WLS used to play, for example. They'd play the big records of the day. They'd mix that in with oldies.
Yeah, it was the American Top 40, but it was like 100 songs. You know? Yeah. Casey Kasem.
And it would be different kinds of music.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to have to happen.
I think so. I'm in full agreement with you on that.
And secondly, I believe that we're going to start having a lot of television devoted to music. You know, I'd love to see a new kind of American bandstand, whatever the 21st century version of that would be, with a corresponding website.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? I mean, kids actually dancing into the music, and
so you
something
can
like
actually
that.
sort of experience the music.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, it's been great talking with you.
It's been a thrill for me.
If you need anything else, you just let us know.
Okay.
All right,
can I give you a call whenever?
Absolutely. Please do. I'm totally open.
Okay.
All right.
Excellent. Okay.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All-American Tommy James.